Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, and thank you for watching.
For the past few weeks, Central Square has played host to public property is that we have a Tragedy of the Commons issue saying Happy Holidays, Keene.
Volunteer interactions where individuals are free to act so long as they don't initiate force.
This morning, we gather to remember Sergeant Tom Ball.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Johnny Posture Ray.
And I'm Allie Havens. In local news, tonight, Keene police respond to a report of a man bleeding after falling off a skateboard, only to discover he had stolen and crashed a fire truck.
Scott Eibel had entered the Keene Fire Department garage and made off with a special operations vehicle on Saturday. He damaged the garage as he was leaving. Mr. Eibel then drove it around town before abandoning it.
Scott is being held on a $10,000 cash bail. He was scheduled to appear in court this morning.
The Keene School Board says no to allowing anti-recruitment veterans into Keene schools.
The issue was brought up by Keene resident Ian Freeman, who requested that counter-recruitment be allowed alongside recruiters. The board rejected it, citing career and college recruiters as alternatives to military service.
The school board admitted that recruiters were allowed on campus 6 times in the last year and that there had been 0 career days.
The issue has garnered the interest of New Hampshire Peace Action, an anti-war group, who in turn reached out to the New Hampshire Civil Liberties Union. There's more to come on this story.
The New Hampshire House of Representatives has what's called a Redress of Grievances Committee. The committee is intended to be an outlet for the public to hold accountable public officials and government employees.
The Redress of Grievances Committee has recently recommended an impeachment investigation into Judge John P. Arnold. Judge Arnold is a senior judge at the Cheshire Superior Court. The issue moves to the full House for a vote as to whether the impeachment investigation will begin.
If the vote passes, other members of the public will be able to bring their grievances forward and ultimately affect the outcome of the investigation.
This process started months ago and has included meetings in which Judge Arnold was invited but did not attend. For our next segment, we will be showing 2 videos.
Both videos were recorded at the 2012 Porcupine Freedom Festival as part of the Porcfest Chronicles.
The first video examines the idea of your home as a center of production instead of consumption.
The second video speaks about entrepreneurship and how it can be valuable to start as early in life as possible.
Now, food gives you personal freedom in more ways than just whether or not you directly control it. The employment system, employeeism, is something that most people take for granted as something is just the way things are. It wasn't always this way. If you look all over New England, you'll find places where people have shops in the bottom, houses at the top, gardens out back. It was only at the turn of the 20th century, or past World War II, that people started really going to the employeeism model in large numbers at the end of the Industrial Revolution. Most people owned their own means of production. If a person was a lawyer, their lawyer's office was in their house. If a person was a farmer, they lived on their farm. If they were a doctor, they had their doctor's office in their house. They owned their own means of production. They were not employees, most people, in the typical sense. Most people don't really think much about this, but when you think in aggregate about things like recessions, what happens is pretty straightforward. Now, you can't blame me if I'm an employer for wanting to pay the people who work for me as little as possible. The problem is every other employer pays everybody who works for them as little as they can get away with too. But in aggregate, that means that there isn't enough aggregate demand to clear the market for the products that are made. They call it overproduction when in reality it's underpayment. That's perfectly okay. It's a free country, so to speak. And if people want to do that, that's fine, but it has consequences. Most people don't like their jobs. Most people just go there because they have to eat. Well, if you're making your own food, you don't have to go there to eat. And if you make your own food on your own property, you're owning your own means of production. Do a little bit of math. Look at your mortgage payment. Look at your rent. Take it, unless you live in a very, very, very tiny place, or unless you're living in a Taj Mahal type place, you take your mortgage, your property taxes, all that stuff, add it together, divide by 30, and you'll find it costs about the same as a hotel in your region. Your property is priced like a hotel. And you know what? That's what most people use it as, is a hotel. Because what do? They sleep there, they eat there, they watch TV there, and then they go to work and then they come back. They don't do anything useful with that property. They expect it to go up in price, although it will go down. And I'm sure many people here are upside down on their mortgages. But overall, they don't do anything with it. When you start using your property to grow your own food, you turn your home into a center of production. You have changed from being a consumer to being a producer. That makes a big difference because now you are in control of the fact that your property is now an income-producing asset and starts to pay for itself, which means you don't have to rely as much on your employer and many other things in order to get your food or to put a roof over your head, which are the primary things that people need to do.
What are some of the ways that you think are really important that they move towards more individual liberty?
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things that comes to mind from what you were talking about is just how, I mean, you've talked about this on your show many times, how compulsory schooling really sets up a mentality of conformity and of preparing for a job. And, you know, the whole way that you're treated in school is the idea is that you have to, you know, jump through these hoops in order to show that you're able to be a responsible job person, you know. Yeah. And really, you know, what I think is the opposite end of that is the opportunity that you have to work for yourself, whether that's as, you know, in a kind of unjobbing situation where you're a freelancer and you're getting income from many different sources, or whether it's through entrepreneurship. And I think, you know, one of the best things that you can do to try and overcome some of the sort of legacy of being in school for that long is just to try it, just to actually get out there and do entrepreneurship as soon as you can, even if you're still in school, to just try and start your own business. Because it doesn't matter if you try 10 things and none of them actually make you any money, you're still going to learn a huge amount doing it. And it's a fantastic way to actually get some of the independence and some of the, you know, the real learning about, you know, taking your own life into your own hands and actually reclaiming your independence in that way.
Or at least going through this, because I mean, like, entrepreneurs talk about living in their car, failing a bunch of times. Like, what better time to start if you have to be in school to start trying out some of these things where, you know, you can at least learn from your mistakes, and maybe you don't, maybe you're not an 18-year-old millionaire, but you've developed some independence that will lead to eventually financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Welcome to James. Okay. For the remainder of the show, we have free Keene TV producer James J.J. Schlesinger joining us. James created this show roughly a year ago and has been the producer, director, and editor ever since.
This is his last show as producer before he hands it off to Emberly McCullough.
Prior to this TV show, James worked with Kat and Russell Canning to produce the Free Keene Press and the New Hampshire Free Press. His plans have him leaving Keene for the Queen City, Manchester, New Hampshire. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks, guys. Good to be on the show.
So we've got you. This segment with you is going to carry out the rest of the show.
That's right. That's right. We're going to just talk about a lot of this. I mean, a lot of stuff to talk about, and I have a lot of people to thank for the efforts that they put into the show and made this show what it is. Obviously, I'm just one person, and there's no way one person can pull off this TV show, let alone pretty much any TV show except for some podcasts, whatever. But this show has definitely been about a lot of individuals dedicating their time and energy, coming every week and just performing for nothing, for no pay. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about here, is just volunteers who are getting the job done.
I want to come back to that, but before we do, Allie was interested in the videos we watched and wanted to talk about that, maybe with you, or maybe just hold forth on her own.
We'll just all talk about it. So the first video, I feel like I kind of disagreed with the guy because Well, I think it's really cool when people have gardens and like do stuff out of their house, and actually a lot of times that's makes the most sense, like what he's talking about when people own businesses out of their house. Isn't it like really common in Keene for people to run businesses out of their homes? It's like legal
Yes.
here when other places it's not. The only thing that I disagreed with him about was just the idea that like I think division of labor needs to be factored into it, because like, you know, someone who farms for a living is going to be able to make more food in less time at a cheaper cost than I'm going to be able to, as I'm not a green thumb. So I just, you know, it would take me much longer to make enough food to feed myself than if it's cheaper, you know, if you factor in the cost of just going to the grocery store and picking it up and bringing it back home, you know, for me that's cheaper than taking off time for work so that I can garden and then have to factor in like losses, which will inevitably occur when I forget to water the plants and all that. What do you guys think about that?
No, I think you bring up a good point. I think I like what he said about doing more with your property. I think that's the idea that I like to take from that. I agree that I might not be a green thumb, and that it might take me more effort and energy to build a garden, like you were saying, than the next person. So obviously it's not for everybody. But I do like the sentiment of do something more than just sleep, eat, and whatever there. You know, do something there that does something productive, that makes you know, some sort of income, unless that's the lifestyle you want. Unless, you know, some people do like the employerism or employeeism type lifestyle where they go to work for a certain wage and that suits them and their routine, and they should certainly be able to do that.
And there's also like less risk involved with, you know, just showing up for work, and you could get laid off, but if you're running your own business out of your house, there's a lot more risk there. If, you know, the business goes under, you could lose your house. But and then I really like the second video, the guy talking about starting entrepreneurship young, because I'm young. You know, in high school, I'd thought of a lot of different entrepreneurship opportunities, but most of them would have not been allowed on campus. I remember a story about when my dad was actually a guidance counselor, and there was this kid who they were very suspicious of. I think they thought he was selling drugs, so they like track him down, and he starts running, and they're like convinced this guy is selling drugs on campus. They catch him. He'd been selling candy to students, and he knew that was against the rules, and so they treated it like this huge deal. When they realized it was candy, they were like, oh, I guess that makes us feel better than drugs, but it's kind of silly. They don't want entrepreneurship in going on in public schools because they find it disruptive to the learning process.
You mean the indoctrination process. And then going back to the story earlier from the veterans not being allowed to speak about, you know, the anti-recruitment message that they might have, but yet by law, public schools have to allow recruiters in. It's kind of
they have to allow recruiters and anti-recruiters too, right? I understood that the law, I mean, maybe I might be wrong about this, but I understood that if they allow recruiters, then they have to also allow anti-recruiters.
But I think they can get away with saying that the anti-recruiters might not be anti-recruiters. They might just simply be alternative. Like, say, a college, for example. Instead of a college saying, well, you shouldn't join the military, you should do instead they just focus on, you should join this college if you get this test score. Right. If your proclivity is towards college. Or get this career fairs and say, well, don't join the military.
Okay. Well, the colleges and the military, they work sort of hand in hand, because while the colleges set up this illusion that if you don't go to college, then you're, you know, gonna never go anywhere in life. It also comes with this huge price tag, which almost no one can actually afford. So then they get you with the military, which says that we'll pay for your college if you join up. So a lot of kids who have no proclivity towards, you know, killing or you know, being told what to do, or, you know, the whole thing of the military, they wouldn't normally want to do something like that, but because they think they have to go to college to go somewhere in their life, they end up joining the military to pay for the college.
Right.
So I think that they're sort of working together in that way, as opposed to anti-recruitment.
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely the status quo, is basically you go through high school and you follow the status quo as much as possible, get your indoctrination, and then you either go to college or you join the military. And if you're one of those poor saps that actually goes into the workforce after high school, well, you should be a ditch digger all your life then, because you're not meeting these standards that society has set for you, which is ridiculous.
When really it would be better if they just encouraged more entrepreneurship in school, starting at a young age. And
they do to a degree. Like Boy Scouts might sell candy bars and wreaths and basically like fundraising. They do minor stuff. But I think, you do have a right point to a degree that it is discouraged. There isn't anything outside of the approved items to sale at a school. You're basically going to get in trouble for doing, because it's, you haven't been given permission by the school board, which is a bunch of elders that are much wiser than you. So, Johnny?
I wanted to go back to the first video we saw about the using your home as a factor of production. When I moved to New Hampshire, I got the sense that I saw a lot more of the homes above the shops and that sort of thing here in this state than from where I'm from in North Carolina. And my theory is that because New Hampshire has a less onerous footprint as far as like zoning laws and government regulations, that it's easier for people to do that, and it's it seems better and it's more profitable to them
feasible?
To do that. Yeah, but like you were saying, there's what do you call it?
Division of labor.
Efficiencies of scale that would encourage a business owner to be a farmer and only a farmer and have his property just for farming and not for living. But I think that when you increase the regulations, you just start taking options away from people, and it's a little better to have more freedom, so that if you want to take 4 hours of your day to produce something at home, then that you want to do, then great, do it.
That's one of the cool things about farming is, typically food that came right out of your own, garden in your backyard, it's going to be better than what you find at the grocery store.
Yep, especially tomatoes.
Maybe especially tomatoes, but like herbs and stuff like that, all of that stuff is, pretty simple to grow, and generally it's much cheaper, I think. Like there's certain kinds of foods that are cheaper. Like I wouldn't want to grow corn in my backyard or cotton or wheat or anything like that. But yeah, certain things like tomatoes I could definitely see, growing domestically like that.
Excellent. And then pigs and chickens and stuff like that are also great to have your own source of meat and eggs and whatnot.
Yeah, that's something else.
I would want to keep the pigs as pets.
I think it's a lot of work, and they're messy, and that's not really something up my avenue, but I really encourage my neighbor to do it so that I can exchange some of my currency or whatever.
Here in New England, I feel like I see, or in New Hampshire, I feel like there's more people who have chickens or livestock who own these things. Where I live, we've got chickens in the backyard. I'll go down and I like to think of it as stealing eggs, although they have been offered to me, so it's not really stealing. But I like to pretend that I'm stealing eggs when I go down there.
Do you have to be sneaky with the hens?
I don't have to be, but I am anyway. Well, the hens are usually out, like taking dust baths or digging for ants or something.
That's interesting because my dad actually owned an all-natural blueberry farm, and he tried to grow in Alabama, and he tried to raise chickens and slaughter those, and he just thought that was like way too much. Blueberries are way easier, I guess, than raising chickens and livestock.
Picking berries, there's nothing better.
Really, Johnny?
Unless you're picking tomatoes.
Okay.
That might be the most true thing we've ever said on the show.
Tomatoes might scientifically be berries. JJ?
I think they're fruit.
JJ, why don't you weigh in on that?
I think I don't know enough about botany to make such a distinction, so I will leave it to the experts.
I know there was a time where
you are an expert on Freaking TV, though.
That's right.
Why don't you tell us who you want to thank?
Wow. She cut you off. That's great. Well, we definitely have a lot of time left, but I definitely want to get to this list of people to thank because it's very important to me. Like I said, the show took a lot of effort. There was a lot of individuals, and each individual that's not here with me at this moment, like these wonderful people, I thank you. I just want to quick rattle off a couple names because that's how I'm going to roll. So here at CTV, I really want to thank Ernie Bodler, Rick Blood, Lee Perkins, and Mark Nelson. Ernie and Rick especially have been critical with the show, helping out with the many issues we've had in the studio with equipment, setting things up, and granting a lot of expertise and knowledge. And Lee is definitely was there at the very beginning to help me get this off the ground. So big props to those Cheshire TV people. And if you come down here to do your own show, then you're probably going to have a lot of good help. So past anchors, the show started off with Jason Repshire as the anchor, and Repshire is just tremendous help here ever since. Right now he is at the switcher and in the control room, so thank you, Repshire. Michelle Seven, Heike Corser, Johnny Ray, Allie Havens, and Derek J. Freeman have all been my past anchors on the show, and I thank each of you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Because it's, I needed you to be here sitting in these seats and to do an awesome job, and you came through.
We certainly did.
Excellent. Past pundits, reporters, and contributors. Lance Weber started out the show with us. Great guy. Thanks so much. Mark Edge, Pete Eyre, Adamo Freeman, Mike Clark, Kate Ager, Nemi Jones, Jason Talley, all wonderful help, wonderful people. And then some critical help has these three individuals. Well, Jason Repshire and Justin X have pretty much been here since the very beginning and have been at every show that they can make physically. Obviously vacations happen, sickness happens, and stuff like that. And David Crawford most recently has been a stalwart helper. And to each of these three individuals, Repshire, X, and Crawford, thank you so much, because it means so much to me that you guys have shown up so consistently and provided your expertise as you become experts in each of your little fields. And then, of course, Emberly, thank you for taking it over so that it doesn't just die with this episode and become a part of history.
It'll never die.
Excellent. So, yes, and then, my plans in the future, I want to do another news show in Manchester. I want to do a comedy show. I want to do a lot more video production. I want to do a lot more fun skit stuff. I want to do...
What was the hardest thing about doing this show? Just the whole experience, what was the hardest thing?
The hardest thing was getting the ball rolling. It took us about 12 weeks of practice before we actually did our first show. And the first show was one of those situations where Lee and I had a short conversation, and he said, well, we need you to start on this date. You've had plenty of practice. We need you to start. You're taking up studio time, blah, blah, blah. And he wanted to see the show start. So getting it started was definitely the hardest part. And then I think shortly after it started, just maintaining it and then realizing how much work that it requires, and then deciding that, well, I am going to get that work done every week. And then eventually it became a lot easier, but it's an all-volunteer show. So we've had some donations. We went out to pizza parties. No one's really gotten paid. And it's been something, a labor of love, if you will, for the people that have showed up every week and dealt with me and some of my, because see, live TV is often very stressful. And when you're in there in the booth, telling people what to do and directing and things don't go right, it's very stressful. And sometimes, the director yells at people because the stress. Mm-hmm. And so individuals have put up with me yelling at them at times and still showed up the next week. So bravo, you're awesome.
Did you get any, speaking of people being mad, did you get any complaints about the show? Because we have some radical opinions from people on the show. And, did you have anyone ever say anything like, I don't appreciate that perspective? Or I'm just curious.
I've only received a small amount of mail, and it's mostly been critiquing, and it's more technical stuff. If the complaints that I've gotten have been, well, the lighting or the sound or that sort of stuff. But I've mostly gotten positive feedback. To be honest with you, I don't think I've gotten one piece of hate mail. I'm not saying I'm disappointed, viewers. I don't need hate mail.
It's a sign of the times, I guess.
But I guess a lot of other people get hate mail, and I don't really need to feel like part of the club on that boat. So. What's your experience, Johnny? You've been on quite a few shows. What do you think?
Good question. It's nerve-wracking. I get very, very nervous sitting back here, and I try not to shake. Sometimes I'll just be like pushing down on the table to keep that from happening. But I've really just enjoyed coming in and spending time with Allie and you to a certain extent. Right. Now, all the people you thanked, definitely wonderful people. Justin, not so sure about him, but the rest of them.
Are you sure you didn't leave anyone out?
I probably did leave some people out, and I'm really terribly sorry if I left you out.
I didn't know one specifically that I could think of.
I made this list up while I was sitting here before the show, and it's got a good 25 names on it. That seems like a good number. Mark Capuzzo, he helped out for a show.
What about
Rob
the viewers?
Panic.
We love the viewers.
Oh, the viewers. The whole reason we do the show is for the viewers. So, of course, we thank the viewers. Yes. Thank you, Allie.
They know we love them.
Well, they just tune in to see you anyway. That's why Johnny's here. So what's your experience, Allie? You've been on the show now. You moved to Keene and pretty much jumped into Free Keene TV. And
so I guess, yeah, I honestly had no idea how sophisticated it was. When I showed up, I thought it was just going to be a bunch of hooligans and it was going to be silly stuff, but actually a bunch of serious topics have been covered, and it's been fun because there's a lot of flexibility as for content, so you can sort of make it up as you go somewhat, as we're currently doing. You can just go ahead and say whatever is on your mind at the time to say. And I think that relaxed, structure sort of allows for impromptu opinion, and I think it's sort of the magic of live TV. That was one of the things we'd considered doing a pre-recorded show, and then and some people liked that because that lets us be lazier. And
Derek said no.
And Derek said no. There's so much magic involved with live TV that we have to keep it live, so we've kept it live.
Yeah. And I also want to thank, some of the people that contributed. Obviously, a lot of activists have made videos, and so I thank you for making videos that I can use. But the individuals that have actually helped contribute to writing the show, Derek J. Freeman and Allie Havens are two of the most prolific individuals to actually write content that goes into the show as part of the script. So I definitely thank you, each of you. I know Derek's probably watching, or
well, you give us a soapbox, we're going to use it.
Excellent.
That's what we're here for.
So, in my last 20 seconds, I just want to thank everybody once again. Ian Freeman, I didn't mention him. He has been a great friend through all of this and been very supportive as well. So thank you, the viewers, and thank you, cast that's going to continue this. So,
good luck in Manchester with all your future endeavors.
Yeah, thank you very much, JJ. And thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed our show.
As always, you can contact us by sending an email to tv@freekeene.com.
Free Keene TV will continue, so you can look forward to more local news and analysis. I'm Johnny Ray.
And I'm Allie Havens. May each of you find happiness, peace, and prosperity.